On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about Infinite Granite by Deafheaven. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters, and we like metal, and we like to talk about it. And that's what we do on this podcast.
Generally, yeah.
I forgot how the intro is supposed to go for some reason, mostly because this album is not really a metal album.
No, I mean, it's got metal elements.
We're normally we restrict our non-metal listens to March and September. Right. But I was looking for something to listen to, and I had been listening to their album, Deafheaven's album from 2013. I keep vamping because I'm trying to remember the name of it. Sunbather. I've been re-listening to Sunbather because the album's 10 years old now, and they actually just today released a anniversary remix of one of the songs from Sunbather. But I was like, do we want to talk about Sunbather? Because we haven't really talked that much about Deafheaven on the show. And then I was like, you know what? I had also been listening to a couple weeks ago. I was looking for character inspiration for D&D, and I was scrolling through Deafheaven, and I was like, oh, their newer album is a bit softer. Maybe this is it. I didn't give it really a fair shake when it came out because I'd listened to the single they put out, and was like, this is just not what I want from them.
Right.
And then a couple weeks ago, I gave it another shot and was like, holy shit. Okay. Yeah. This is actually really good for what it is. If you're not expecting it to be, Sunbather again. Right. Which I shouldn't have expected anything like that because it feels like a fairly natural progression from Ordinary Corrupt Human Love. It feels like a fairly natural progression from that album, which already really upped the post-rock and shoegaze elements in comparison to their previous work. So
this makes sense.
It honestly feels like a natural progression. It is a little bit, it feels like there could have been one more album between this and Ordinary Corrupt Human Love to sort of make it feel more natural. It is a little bit of a leap for them.
But not a lot.
They skipped a couple of steps. But I don't think that was to this album's detriment in the end. I really, really like this. But we'll talk more about this album later on. First, right. How are you doing? It's been a busy week for you.
I'm exhausted. I'm trying hard not to yawn at you. But yeah, I've been working at the fair during the day and then working my night job as well. So I'm peopling in the sun all day, and then I'm peopling in a bar all night.
And that's too much people.
That's too much peopling. I can feel the sunburn on my face. I can feel that I'm dehydrated and I'm starving. And even though I've been eating nonstop, I spent about $3,000 on fair food, and
it's about 30,000 calories.
It is if I eat another cheese curd, my heart will explode.
You will die.
I will die.
You will go into immediate cardiac arrest.
Immediate. Which I just remember that the fair ends for me at least. Well, no, I'll have to go to the fair on Saturday as well because I got to take my youngest child,
I suppose,
to the fair. But I know that it ends shortly.
Yeah.
So
I Friday,
don't, right
for you,
as far as working goes.
Yeah, as far as working.
So I don't really want to die.
Yeah,
because I know this will all end.
Yeah,
shortly.
It'll be over with soon enough.
And I see. Did I dye my beard prior to the past podcast? Did we talk about that?
I can't remember.
Oh, I don't know.
But yeah, you dyed your beard.
Yeah, I did. It's reddish brown now.
Yeah.
Rather than white.
Well, the primary you missed some of the gray on the.
Well, yeah, I know. I left that on purpose.
On your on
my flanks there. Yeah.
Flanks. There we go. I was like, that's not sideburns. It's down too low.
My jowls.
Your jowls. Yes, that is what those are. Your jowls. But yeah, you dyed your beard.
Yes, and maybe I'm going through a midlife crisis because I dyed my beard. I bought a giant TV and a PS5.
Okay. Yeah. How do you feel about a new motorcycle?
I kind of want one.
So I feel like it might be happening.
Do you know any like hot 24-year-old girls?
No. I actually don't.
That's not happening anyway. That's fine. Yeah,
you already have a girlfriend.
I do. I was just trying to pad out the story with more stereotypes.
I know. What else is there?
A Camaro.
A Camaro, yeah, a motorcycle and a Camaro.
And a Camaro, yep. I got to start wearing Zumbas again.
There you go.
Yeah.
Start wearing Hawaiian shirts. Why not? Why not Hawaiian shirts?
Well, maybe I'll get in shape. You know?
I don't know if Hawaiian shirts is really a midlife crisis thing. It's just kind of a middle-aged guy thing.
Yeah, middle-aged guy thing. I have some Hawaiian shirts. I don't wear them.
Yeah. I like there is a part of my brain that's just like I'll probably have a Hawaiian shirt phase at some like I can see myself sometime in the future being a Hawaiian shirt guy.
Mm-hmm.
But then what just popped into my head, not that it matters in this day and age, but what popped into my head is the Simpsons joke when Bart is wearing a Hawaiian shirt and Homer's like, there's only two kinds of people who wear Hawaiian shirts, Marge. Big fat party animals and gay dudes. It's like, I think we both know Bart's not a big party animal or something. I don't remember that.
He was trying to like take the gay out of him or whatever.
I don't remember the context.
And he ends up taking him to a gay factory.
It's I mean, as you might imagine, a pretty old Simpsons episode. Yeah. It's not one that has come out in the last decade.
Right. That's the one where he was with Moe and he's like, and Moe says, "Well, Jesus Christ, Homer, your son's gay, your daughter's a vegetarian. Are you and Marge related?" Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think what's in my head is just the Kyle Kinane thing of like, you go to bed Gigi Allen, you wake up Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah.
You don't know how life's gonna go.
You don't know. You don't know where things are gonna take you. I mean, right now you look like a Bond villain. I mean, every time I see this, he's got his cat in his lap.
I have my white cat in my lap that I'm stroking menacingly.
Right.
I have a classic German dueling scar on my cheek.
Right.
And a monocle. Mm-hmm. That's where that comes from, by the way.
What?
The whole thing of like villains having like a scar on their cheek.
Yeah.
Is because because who's more villainous than the Nazis? Mm-hmm. And the reason that a bunch of high-ranking Nazis had that scar on their cheek is because that was a whole thing in like German universities in the late 1800s into the early 1900s, is they would like duel each other with swords, and it was considered like a
badge of honor.
A badge of honor if you were slashed across the face. Mm-hmm. And if that happened, you wouldn't get it tended to in such a way as to prevent it from scarring. It was seen as as an honorable thing. Mm-hmm. So that's why there are genuinely a lot of officers, both from the First World War and Nazis in the Second World War, who have that, and that just bled into spy fiction and supervillain fiction. Because again, who's more villainous than the fucking Nazis?
And now that we have a whole lot of Nazis again, maybe somebody should turn them on to old traditions
and fighting each other with swords.
Give them real rapiers
and just tell them to go at each other.
Yeah.
And see how many of the shitheads accidentally kill each other. It will be a net positive for the world because it will be funny and Nazis will die. That sounds mean, but remember, right. I'm talking about Nazis.
Sure. I mean, they're human beings, but they're Nazis.
Right. So, yeah. I ran out of juice there. What have I been doing? Mm-hmm. I'll answer that. I asked myself that question, and now I'll answer it. Thank you, Kale, for asking. I mean, I've continued to play Bloodborne.
Sure.
I'm almost done with the main game. I think I've got one more major boss in the main game that I at least want to try to get.
Yeah.
It seems like the general consensus seems to be that it is by far the toughest boss in the main game.
Really?
Tougher than Gehrman and Moon Presence.
Really?
It's Abritus, the daughter of the cosmos, who's a big fucking weird Cthulhu thing. She's really, really bizarre looking. I attempted her once last night, and I have a really good weapon. It felt like I hit her a couple of times. I was like, oh, this is going to suck. It kind of feels like Bloodborne's version of every Dark Souls game, and Elden Ring has one as well. Every one of the fantasy games that FromSoft has made has like a super hard dragon boss.
Sure.
Like they have a dragon super boss of some kind.
You're thinking about Placidusax, or
yeah, like Placidusax is. I don't think Placidusax is actually that difficult.
No,
right. He's very showy and an extremely cool boss
with lots of lightning,
but he's not actually that difficult, I think. But like in Dark Souls 1, one of the hardest bosses is a dragon called Calamite. That was a lot of them are in the DLC.
Okay.
So there's Calamite in Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 2 had a really difficult dragon boss. I think it was like the Archdragon. Dark Souls 3 has Dark Eater Midir, who's an extremely difficult boss and fought in an arena not too dissimilar from Abritus. And Abritus is probably the most dragon-shaped thing in Bloodborne. Dragon-shaped in quotation marks, because she has wings, in quotation marks. She's a weird fucking tentacle thing. But
which dragon were you talking about in Elden Ring?
Placidusax is the closest thing,
right?
That the game currently has. There's always room for them to add another super fucking hard dragon boss in the DLC that's coming out sometime. I actually don't know if that DLC has a release date.
I told you I did. I told you.
You started another playthrough because you bought a PlayStation 5.
Right, and I was playing on a not linked account before. In other words, I couldn't transfer my game to the new console.
Did Elden Ring do that sort of thing where you could, if you bought the PS4 version, it counted as the PS5 version?
Yes, I think. I'm not sure. It hasn't done anything. I mean, it loaded onto the PS5. Well, no. I have it on a USB connected. Now, that's one thing I didn't know about the PS5 is that new PS5 games that are just PS5 games can't go on an external drive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can't put that on. I have a lot of games. They're all PS4 games on a 4 terabyte drive.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But they're all PS4 games, so if you get a PS5 game, it won't go on the.
Oh, okay. If you have like a blank drive, can you store like if I bought a drive that had no other games on it, could I store games?
PS4 games to play on your PS5. But things that are designated PS5 games have to go in internal memory.
Oh,
for some reason.
That
things that are made for just the PS5. And they sell extra internal memory, which do I have to take the fucking thing apart? What?
I doubt
if I was going to do that, yeah, because it's got 1 terabyte.
It's probably got a USB thing. It's fucking so stupid that 1 terabyte does not get you very far.
I know, that's crazy.
These days, I hate that. I like fucking optimize your games, people. Optimize your games, make them smaller. Like I don't know at what point the games industry is gonna learn, like, people are happy to wait longer for games that are going to be good when they come out. Like, that are not going to have a shitload of technical issues when they come out. Like,
we'll be patient if it's a good game.
And like when our because it's a studio problem. It's not usually a developer problem. It's a studio problem of the studio, like a publishing studio going, or a publisher going like, all right, you've got this amount of time, and the developer going like, okay, we need more time, and then waiting until a month before the game is supposed to come out before deciding to delay it. And it's like, no, just give the developer way more time than you think they'll need, or yeah, I don't know.
Give them the time they need.
Like I feel like the plan should be like, okay, how much time do we want to give them? Let's give them 2 more years than that. And the game will be finished and complete, and come out and not be a giant fucking mess. Like, after fucking Cyberpunk, after what was one of the other big disasters lately? Fucking, I guess, Redfall. But that game was doomed from the start, so that one kind of doesn't count. Like, it just seems like it's been like disaster after disaster. Some of these like AAA games that end up getting delayed multiple times, and it's like, just give it the time that it needs from the beginning, instead of delaying it. I'm thinking about Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite was supposed to come out like a full year and a half before it eventually did, and it wasn't a huge technical disaster, but it was missing like 75% of the things that would be expected to exist in a Halo game. Like the multiplayer was missing the vast majority of the things that have been a part of the primary release of every other title.
Sure.
So yeah, you were snapping your fingers. Were you thinking of something?
It's gone now.
Okay, it's gone. You were doing a thing like, oh, I had a thought. I'll bring it up when Kale's done talking. And
I have no idea.
I kept going.
It's gone. I'm tired. I did notice, by the way, even though I bought the bigger TV and I have the game console that has better resolution and everything. Okay. I still realized that even with all that, I gotta go get prescription glasses.
Yeah,
I really do. I got these readers, and I'm wearing the readers, or I'm not wearing the readers. And the other night, like I said, I started playing another run through of Elden Ring, and I'm going through, and I'm in a battle with one of the Knights Cavalries.
Knights Cavalry. One
of the Knights Cavalry, and I'm going back and doing a little horsey duel there. And I'm hitting him, and I keep hitting him, and it's not doing any damage. And this is just taking way too long. I should have taken this guy out already a long time ago, and then that's realized, I don't have a weapon armed.
You were just punching him.
I was punching
from horseback.
I was punching him from horseback,
but you could not see that you were not holding a weapon.
Right, I couldn't. I'm so blind now that I couldn't see that I wasn't holding the Uchigatana.
You have reading glasses.
Yeah.
Spread all across creation.
Yes, I do.
Every locale that you frequent, besides my apartment, you have got a pair of reading glasses stashed there just in case.
I don't know why I don't have just a pair that stays on this table right here.
Honestly, you probably should. Like, not that you do a lot of reading while you're here.
No.
But it's like my apartment is probably the only place you go to regularly that you do not have reading glasses stashed in.
Right.
I think you need some prescription glasses.
And when I'm here on Sunday, I do a lot of reading.
Yeah. So you said do. Yeah, you should get some prescription glasses.
I should. Some prescription, and I can see stuff.
You'll be able to see things.
I see when I'm not holding the freaking weapon that I'm supposed to be holding.
It's really funny to me. My cat is freaking the fuck out right now because apparently I did not pay enough attention to her before you showed up.
Apparently.
And she's upset. You know what didn't make me upset?
Deafheaven?
Yeah, Infinite Granite by Deafheaven. I didn't pay too terribly much attention to what a lot of people tended to think when this album came out. Like, it just kind of came out and I was like, this isn't really what I'm looking for. And I sort of moved on. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what the reaction among the fan base was among like the I guess the black gaze community, which is not African-American homosexuals. That would be black metal.
There's a community there as well.
Sure, absolutely. Sure. But no, a portmanteau of black metal and shoegaze,
right?
Which is a genre that Deafheaven didn't create, but certainly they popularized it. Mm-hmm. It's usually argued that the genre originated with a sort of a generation of bands a little bit older, like Wolves in the Throne Room, and Alcest or Alcest, however it's meant to be pronounced.
I say Alcest. That's I've never heard anybody else say it the other way. So.
Deafheaven really kind of popularized it with their album Sunbather that came out in 2013.
Wow.
And then this album is basically, it keeps the shoegaze part, but it completely eschews almost any and all metal whatsoever.
There's some black metal in here yet.
But just a little bit.
Right. It provides crescendo for certain songs, but that's about the extent of it.
There's a dash.
Yeah.
It's like you've got a cocktail that's mostly that's quite sweet. Mm-hmm. It's not overly sweet, but it's quite sweet. Right. And you just put just a tiny little dash of bitters in there. Mm-hmm. Just a little bit,
right,
to balance it out a little bit more. But overall, it's still a very sweet cocktail, and that's what Infinite Granite is. Deafheaven, by the way, if you're listening and you don't know anything about the band, they're an American band that can be described as a post-metal band, I suppose. And I don't know why you're doing a little dance.
Well, because you said they're an American band, so I had to guess.
They're an American band.
Yeah.
They're from San Francisco. Yes, Grand Funk Railroad. Yeah. They're from San Francisco, and they've put out a number of albums. Again, one of the big bands of the black gaze movement. There's been there was quite a large number of bands that sort of embraced that style of combining sort of shoegaze and post rock with black metal and like ambient metal sort of influences, as sort of like an outgrowth of like post metal. It's its own weird little corner of metal. It's not that weird, I guess. It's two things that before that got started, you wouldn't necessarily like put together in the same room, despite the fact that they actually make a lot of sense to be together in the same room. But the band consists, at least at this point, as this album came out in 2021, of George Clark, the vocalist, Carrie McCoy, guitars, Shiv Mehra, I hope I'm saying that right. Also on guitars, Chris Johnson on bass guitar, and Daniel Tracy on drums. They were originally signed to Death Wish Incorporated, which is Jacob Bannon's label, from the vocalist from Converge.
Sure.
But they've moved to different labels several different times, almost always like independent labels. I don't think they've ever really been on anything particularly big, to my knowledge, and I think it's partially because they kind of like to move around. So they haven't been locked into any big multi-album contracts with anybody. This album, as we've alluded to multiple times, it has a tiny little dash of metal in there, but mostly this is a very shoegaze heavy, very post-rock focused, almost dream pop in some elements.
Yeah. And it's funny, you weren't alive at the time. But this really reminds me a lot of what the somewhat slightly sad girls, but still wore a little bit of pink in the 1980s listened to.
Yeah. No, I know exactly. I have an image in my head that I feel like I know what you're talking about. Like I wasn't around for that. But kind of like a, I suddenly can't remember her name. Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Cyndi Lauper?
Like kind of like sadder Cyndi Lauper sort of vibes. You know what I'm talking about?
It has The Cure in here. There's a lot of The Cure in here as well. Yeah.
And honestly, from what I know about The Cure, I'm not like that seems like it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
And they as a band, Deafheaven has kind of always had those types of sensibilities. They've always leaned, I think, very heavily on like dream pop as a inspiration, partially. Just look at like the album art for Sunbather. You would look at that and you would under no circumstances think that is a metal album with any amount of black metal in it whatsoever. It looks like it would be some sort of really clean pop album.
Sure.
And so there has always been that sort of element to their imagery. I would say this is kind of the first album of theirs that probably sounds like what you'd expect their music to sound like just from looking at them and looking at their imagery of their albums. Like it's the first album that actually looks like what you would expect from looking at them.
Right.
I think the cover art of this album, I think they're in a bit of their blue period, perhaps, because there's a lot of blue on this cover. There was a lot of blue on Ordinary Corrupt Human Love as well. It just seems like they're kind of in that sort of vibe.
They're on their blue period.
I guess Ordinary Corrupt Human Love, the cover is in black and white, but I think
it feels blue. I
think the inside of the slip cover of the vinyl I have for that album, I think the inside is all blue. But as far as like vibes go, this album is very. I'm trying to think of. I would say there's kind of a bittersweet vibe to it. A lot of it. It feels very. I don't know.
There's definitely melancholy there.
There's some melancholy there, but there's also so much of it. This is one of the first things in a while I feel like I have listened to that, despite like really itching really scratching the itch in that part of my brain of like, oh, this is kind of, sad, sort of emo vibes here. Marcus, the sad goblin in my brain, is pleased by this, but also hearing it makes me genuinely happy. Listening to this album, like it's not just like, oh, this is really good and I like this. Like listening to this album seems to actively release some happy chemicals in my brain.
Some endorphins.
There's some endorphins getting released there listening to some of this. Like, oh, this music makes me feel good. And not in a weird sort of ironic way I get from like, listening to Bell Witch, where it's like, I love this, but it doesn't make me feel good, but I like it. No, listening to this makes me happy. In that way that like there's a lot of post rock that feels that way of like, oh, I feel happy listening to this, even if the song does have kind of a melancholy vibe to it. There's something about it that feels kind of happy about it. And I don't know. You felt the same way. This album releases a lot of happy chemicals for you.
I did. A lot of endorphins were
endorphins.
Endorphins.
What are endorphins?
Endorphins. They're because they swim in a line. The one in the front and the one in the back. Those are the endorphins.
The end. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's two D's there.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say two D's in a row, so you just say endorphins, and you don't pronounce the D's like there's two of them.
Right.
I see.
So that's what I got the endorphins.
I see.
But yeah, I did not expect what this was at all. I mean, even though you kind of told me, you said exactly what this is. Yeah.
When I told you what album we were going to listen to this week.
And then I listened to it. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, he said that, but I wasn't somehow, psychologically ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned towards the beginning of the episode, like when this album came out, I kind of, I listened to the single that they had put out, which was
it In Blur? Was that the single?
No, the single was Great Massive Color.
Oh.
I listened to that and I was like, oh, they're doing George is doing all clean vocals, and I don't know how I feel. Like at the time, I just didn't like his clean vocals, and it felt pretentious to me, which Deafheaven has always kind of rode the line between innovative and pretentious. Like they've always kind of been there for me, and it just felt like they went over the line into just being overly pretentious. But then, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, I gave this another shot and was like, oh, I'm ready for this now, I guess, because I just found that I really, really dug it. And I still think George's vocals aren't the greatest thing in the world.
Right.
In the sense that his clean vocals are very kind of one note. But
it's other notes.
Yes, not literally one note, but like he doesn't push himself very far in the clean vocal category. But if you listen to a lot of shoegaze, like the vocals that are there tend not to be all that wild.
Right. Hardly the focus really even of in any of the songs.
And his vocals definitely do not like it. By no means do they feel like they don't fit. They feel like they fit exactly where they should be, like to the point where anything more would feel overstated.
Sure.
I feel like the vocals are at the level that they need to be, which is more than can be said for the screamed vocals on Sunbather, which are often so low in the mix it can be hard to discern them.
Sure.
His vocals, I feel like, are at the right part of the mix. Also because then you get to actually like hear and absorb some of the lyrics.
Sure.
Which was basically impossible on a lot of their previous work, despite the fact that like on Ordinary Corrupt Human Love in particular, the vocals are a bit higher in the mix, and you can hear that George really enunciates when he screams, but it's still hard to make things out. Versus on this, I mean, like all the clean vocals, it's a lot easier to understand what's being said most of the time. It's not the most literal vocals in the world. They're generally pretty metaphorical, but this album just has, I would say, impeccable vibes. This is a very vibe heavy album.
It is
the way that I would describe it, and I like it. It seems like people in general liked this. It seems like at least music critics enjoyed Deafheaven taking maybe a little bit of a leap of faith in regards to their musical style. It's got an 82 on Metacritic.
Sure.
I was going to ask if this album slaps, but it's one of those things where it's like
that's not applicable.
It's just not that type of album,
right?
That you would listen to and go like, man, this album really slaps. It's like it's not that type of album.
Right.
What's your favorite song on this album?
The one song I listened to like 3 times was The Gnashing.
The Gnashing's really good.
Yeah, that lead in there is just amazing right there at the end.
But for me, I think it's between The Gnashing, Mombasa,
of course,
but Mombasa is not.
It's not really Yeah.
I didn't write it down as my favorite song. I think my favorite song is Villain.
Okay, yeah, that one's great too.
Like there's a lot of on every one of these songs I think has something about it that I really, really like. I really like I think Shell Star is just such a fantastic opener for the album, and kind of just getting you into the feeling and introducing like, okay, you know, if you're familiar with Deafheaven and you've listened to their other stuff, I think it's a really great like introduction of like, hey, this is what this album is going to be about.
Right.
This is what this album is going to be like. Here's what you can expect from the rest of the album.
I thought you were talking about the mix of the vocals. I thought they really buried the vocals in Neptune Raining Diamonds. I thought they really needed to bring them up a bit there.
Instrumental track. Yeah, there's a couple of cool instrumental tracks on here that get really sort of spacey and ambient with it that I like.
Fun.
And yeah, like on a couple of the songs at the crescendo, they bring in some screamed vocals, particularly towards the end of Villain and Mombasa, and at the end of The Gnashing, I think, as well. George brings back some of his screamed vocals really at the end of Mombasa, like the last probably minute and a half, 2 minutes of Mombasa. It kind of turns back into an older Deafheaven song.
Sure.
Which kind of feels like, the thing I was thinking to compare it to earlier today is a thing that you don't have context for because you still haven't fucking watched it. So I won't. I wanted to compare it to a thing in season 3 of Twin Peaks.
Oh, right.
Which you still haven't watched.
Which you gave to me as a present on DVD.
No, on Blu-ray.
On Blu-ray.
I gave it to you on Blu-ray.
Oh, you know what? I could actually watch it now without the really loud PlayStation.
Super loud. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can play Blu-rays on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a fucking Sony device.
Right.
Like, I would.
Sure.
It would be really weird if the PS5 with the disc drive was not a Blu-ray player.
But this just plays HD DVDs?
Because I think PlayStation discs are Blu-ray.
They are,
by default. Like they are just Blu-ray discs. So yeah, that would be really weird if you couldn't play Blu-rays on your PlayStation. Like Sony, you have the patent on this technology. Why are you not doing this on your entertainment device?
What are Xbox games? Are those just CDs?
I think they are.
Does it come on mini disc?
No.
Oh.
I think they are technically like
HD DVDs?
I think they might be technically HD DVDs.
Can you play Blu-rays on your Xbox?
On Xbox Ones, yes, you can. And I presume on the newer ones as well. Although the Blu-ray player on the Xbox is a bit rickety, probably because Sony was like, oh, we'll let you use a Blu-ray player, but you have to use this one. And it kind of sucks. It just, for no particular reason, sometimes it doesn't work. Like when I would do my like Lord of the Rings rewatches, because I have those on Blu-ray. I would. What?
I have that big TV and a Blu-ray player.
Yeah,
I could borrow those again this year.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, when I would do that, like probably 1 out of 3 times, I'll put the disc in and my Xbox will be like, we can't read this disc. Like, my fucking, what's your goddamn problem? I'll take it out and I'll like
blow on it or whatever.
Well, I think I usually end up having to turn the Xbox off and turn it back on again, and then it will work. Yeah, the Blu-ray player and the Xbox One, at least the one I have, which is like the stock original Xbox One. It's not great. I don't know how the one in the new generation, the Series X /S/ whatever the fuck they're called. I don't know how that measures up. But anyway, I wanted to compare. There's a moment in at the very end of the season where there is this thing that you have been waiting for and expecting to happen all season. Like it's established early in the season. There's this thing that happens, and then because of that thing happening, you know that this other thing is going to happen, and it represents a something returning to normal, essentially. And they make you wait for it. for the entire season.
And you
they
just know
make
it's coming.
you wait for it. You know it's coming. And you go, come on, get to it. And then when it finally happens,
you almost did Schwarzenegger there. Just
come on, get to it, come on. And then when it finally happens, it's extremely satisfying. And I think that like something about that related in my mind to you know the end of that last track on this album of like there's so many moments on the album, so many songs where you feel like at any moment it could turn back into something from one of their earlier albums. Like they could make that crescendo just a little bit bigger and it would sound natural. And you could do, you know, some tremolo picked guitars and you could have the screamed vocals and you could do that. You could bring all that stuff back. And they hold that back. They withhold that. And I think the album is better for it because when they finally get to the last half of the album and they start bringing that back more, it feels better. It's been made all the more satisfying by its absence.
Sure.
And I kind of hope, like, again, I don't really know what the fan reaction to this was. I know what the critical reaction was. I don't know what the fan reaction was. And I kind of hope there's not one of those situations where like a band really kind of takes a risk and changes their sound a little bit and like fans react negatively to it.
Right.
And the band decides to backtrack, even though the risk that they took actually artistically paid off.
And it worked.
And it worked. And I think I think it does. I think from an artistic perspective, I think the risk that they took paid off. And I think they made something that manages to feel unique. It doesn't feel like them as they established themselves, but like, you know, when they made Sunbather, like there were no other bands making music like that. Like Alcest didn't really sound like that at the time. And Alcest sort of did what Deafheaven ended up doing, where they made a couple albums that had like no screamed vocals on them that were much more sort of post-rock and shoegaze and like much softer. I have one of those albums on vinyl. It's really good, but like it doesn't sound much of anything like. And then they kind of went back to the more sort of black gaze style, which works for them and it's fine. And I like their style, but I hope Deafheaven makes more albums like this because I think the genre they helped popularize ended up becoming kind of oversaturated, and they decided to move on and do something different and become unique again. Their
next album's just going to be Southern rock.
I hope not.
Yeah.
I cannot see working for them. They're from San Francisco.
Hey, CCR made it work.
Where's CCR from?
San Francisco.
They're from San Fran? Yeah. Okay. But also it was the 60s.
Right.
So I feel like there was less of an association in the like. Also, you know, you could go to a place like Woodstock where everyone's on LSD and you could listen to some Southern rock, you know.
I think I want to listen to Deafheaven on LSD.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
I feel like Southern rock today has some different connotations than it did in the 1960s
and 70s, right? Yeah.
It's a different environment than it once was. But what do you want to listen to next week? That's probably not Southern rock.
I'll have to think about
you were gonna bring some Skynyrd.
Yeah. Hey, I like me some Skynyrd. But next week, going to bring an album from 1993.
Okay.
It's progressive thrash metal.
Okay.
It's somewhat artsy and almost poppy in some ways.
Hearing a lot of things I like.
It's the final album from a band called Anacrusis. Their album Screams and Whispers.
Anacrusis. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, they were sort of
Screams and Whispers.
Yeah, the vanguard of that progressive thrash movement that happened in the early 90s.
Okay. I will give that a listen before next week. For those of you out there who are listening in cyberspace, out there in cyberspace.
I don't know why I made a ghost sound.
You were a cyber ghost.
I'm a cyber I'm a digital specter.
A digital specter. What's up? We're Digital Spectre. That sounds like it would be a band that exists in universe in Cyberpunk 20s.
Sure.
Or just the Cyberpunk universe.
Mm-hmm. Digital Spectre. They opened up.
It's Regina Spektor, but she's just. It's a Regina Spektor cover band.
Right. But they're using like some sort of a Chat GPT thing to mimic her lyrics and her voice for that matter. Yes. They can do that now.
Yes. And anyway, thank you for listening. Go ahead and what I was trying to say is you should go and follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
I'm so tired.
Sure. Yeah. Go follow us on Facebook and Twitter and go subscribe to whatever it is you're using to listen to us. That's the other thing that I say at the end of the episode.
Is it?
And there's one more thing that I say at the end of the episodes, which is thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. Oh, I didn't ask you what metal you Sorry, we can't end the episode yet.
Gold.
Okay, but first,
you didn't say that. Okay, you got to say the thing.
I got to say the thing. What? This is a train wreck. This is a fucking disaster. The end of this episode. I'm caught between like, do I try and edit this and just redo the entire last however many minutes? What metal do you bestow upon this album? Like Maz Kanata to Chewbacca at the end of the other bullshit that I say. I'm not doing what I did last week.
Gold.
Yeah, it's gold. This is gold for me. I'm gonna listen. I will
listen to this again.
As soon as we're done with this, I'm probably gonna listen to it again. Like I have. It's been a long time since I have felt like a compulsion to listen to an album that either of us have brought. As soon as I've listened to it twice today.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe I've listened to it 3 times. I think I've listened to it 3 times today. And when we're done, I want to listen to it again.
All right.
This album's like a drug. I don't know. It's good. So it's gold.
You know what sucks about that though?
I'm gonna get sick of it.
You're gonna get sick of it. That's happened to me so many times where this is my favorite thing in the world, and then I listen to like 10,000 times, and then I hear it somewhere again and go, I don't.
That hasn't happened to me a lot lately, even with like the albums over the last couple of years that I have gotten really obsessed with. I think what ends up happening usually is that I sort of save myself from that by putting particular songs that I really like into playlists with other artists.
That way you don't get burnt on it.
So I don't get quite as burnt out on it. And if I'm like, there's that Deafheaven song in this playlist, I want to just go listen to that album. And then I'll go and do that. And it sort of saves me from just listening to the whole album over and over again. But I do want to listen to it again as soon as we're done.
All right.
Here. So, yeah.
I'm OJ.
I'm Gail.
Congratulations.